patient panelists or sickle cell warriors, would you like to introduce yourself before we start the call?
Hi, Jessica. I can start out. Hi, everyone. Kyle Smith from Philadelphia, PA. Just wanted to say happy, World Sickle Cell Day. Thank you for inviting me to shine the light on sickle cell. So I'm looking forward to some great conversation.
Thank you for joining us, Kyle.
Hi, my name is Shirley Miller. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. And happy Juneteenth, happy World Sickle Cell Day. It's all of that. And glad to be a part of the panel.
Thank you, Ms. Shirley. Okay, I'll go. My name is Justina Williams. I am a patient engagement coordinator from Piedmont Health Services and Sickle Cell Agency. I have sickle cell SS, and I live in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Guess I'll be next. I am Jessica Miller. I volunteer at Bridges Pointe, Inc. I have SS, and I am from Greensboro, North Carolina.
I'll go next. I'm Shanika Richardson. I live in Durham, North Carolina. I have sickle cell hemoglobin SS, and I am 42 years old.
Hi, my name is Kristen Walker, and I'm just joining. My daughter had sickle cell disease, and I just wanted to, I stay in touch with the sickle cell community because I, always want to be of help. I just wanted to listen in and see how can I continue to help with children who still have sickle cell.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because I think I was trying to speak earlier, but I don't think my microphone was working. But I'm Andre Harris. I have genotype SS. I'm an advocate. I live in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And I'm happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. I'm glad your microphone is working. Your voice is valid.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to begin the meeting in 1 minute. So if you would like to continue to do the bubble, you can, or just introduce yourself in the chat as we begin the meeting.
I'm Paula Tanabe from Duke and know some of you, so it's good to see some old faces that I haven't seen in a while. And I'm an emergency department nurse and a researcher doing work to improve the care for individuals with sickle cell. So it's good to see some of you again.
Hi, Dr. Tanabe.
Hi, Andre.
I just talked about you earlier.
And I missed you and Stephanie. I was so sorry. I really wanted to call. I'm sure that you guys just knocked it out of the park. So.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Dr. Tanabe. Good to see you again.
That's so good to see you, Shanika. How's your little one?
He's doing good, thank you. He's 2 and getting bigger every day.
Woo! You're busy now, huh?
Oh yeah, very.
Exciting. So glad for you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Linda Hubbard Curtis. I'm with Bridges Pointe, Durham, North Carolina, and looking forward to hearing a lot of good work that's happening in the area of sickle cell and whatever contributions that I can make within the community. I am looking for that. And also I can be used as a resource person for those students who want to go to college and they want to know how they can have a positive experience going to college. Thank you, and happy Father's Day.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, I believe we're ready to begin the meeting.
We are still in our sickle cell meet and greet time. And what I can do is open it up for us to continue the cloud and have you respond even more responses. It was locked for only one response per person. I'm gonna open it so that you can respond more than once. If you guys could continue to post in the chat your information so we can meet and greet. Anyone want to introduce themselves?
Hi, Kayla.
Hi.
Shirley, you're a celebrity. I just wanted to say hi. See, you know, your name is popping up everywhere in the chat, but I wanted to say hello.
How are you?
Doing well. It's good to see you.
Good to hear you.
Absolutely. Good to be heard. Good to be heard.
Yeah.
I see some other friendly faces on here too. Hey,
Yeah.
Azizi, how's it going?
Hey, it's going really well. What about yourself? Good to see you.
You as well. Making it, you know. COVID
Yeah.
world. So we out here.
Yeah.
We are. We are out here. Good. Hey, Shirley Miller.
Hi there. This is my third event of the day.
How is everyone doing as far as the pandemic is going?
Doing pretty good. Staying inside.
That's
Yeah,
good.
a little tired
Wearing
of
a
the
mask.
house.
As much as I can. As much as I can.
Okay, warriors, you can continue to post in the cloud. Feel free to tell us how you're shining your light for sickle cell.
Hey, Kimberly Leathers. Good to see you.
Do we have any warriors on the phone that want to introduce themselves and say hi?
Hello, everyone. My name is Kayla Atwater. I am the youth ambassador for Bridges Pointe.
Hi, Kayla. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey Kayla, hey everyone, I'm Patrick. I'm an ambassador for Bridges Pointe. I have sickle cell disease, type SC, and it's nice to see everyone today.
Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Patrick.
Hey everybody.
Patrick also has his own clothing line. I say that because he is wearing his t-shirt and I love the design.
Thank you, thank you.
Jessica, show us your t-shirt as well.
But my t-shirt says Sickle Cell Lives Matter, and I got this for World Sickle Cell Day. Thank you, Shanika.
You're welcome.
And mine says Sickle Cell Warrior. It looks orange, but I promise it's red.
And you can have.
I'd like to order one of those once we get off. You can give me the information. I definitely will wear it to work.
Absolutely. And Miss Linda is also wearing one. And Miss Cheryl Bibbins is wearing one. They're all connected to Bridges Point. Thank you. Okay, so before we get started, if anyone wants to take a selfie and post it to your social media, you can do so now, and we'll have another break where we'll do that again and give you the opportunity to post to your social media. Sickle Cell World Sickle Cell Day.
Anybody else having as hard a time I am trying to get this selfie?
I'm having a tough time too, but I think I'm figuring it out.
Be sure to hashtag World Sickle Cell Day 2020 and masks on for World Sickle Cell Day. Also, shine your light on sickle cell.
Okay, I'm going to give the host over to Justina, but I have to stop sharing my screen. Before I do, I'll just go over the bubble. It looks like Warrior said they're shining their light by advocating, spreading awareness, participating as a CBO, love, social media, attention, gentle, overcoming. I think they're kind of scrambled, but as you can tell, you're shining your light in a number of ways. And if you still want to respond, you can. We're going to save this and share this on our social media as well. And I will stop sharing my screen now. So thank you everyone for participating in that.
Okay. Victoria, you can begin.
Okay, so I am going to begin actually. And give me one moment. Do you have the host? Are you the host?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. My name is Shanika Richardson, and welcome to the International Sickle Cell Virtual Symposium. This event is sponsored by Bridges Point Incorporated and Piedmont Health Services and Sickle Cell Agency. Our moderator today is Ms. Victoria Revelle. Victoria Revelle, MPH, is a skilled health educator and an experienced public health practitioner who has implemented global health equity workshop programs in Paris, France, Rome, Italy, and Madrid, Spain. As a public health advocate, Victoria has presented her research on the national level at the American Public Health Association's APH's annual meetings, and in 2018, she became the first African American to win the APHA International Health section's inaugural Young Professional Award. After completing the 16th U.S. Surgeon General's Community Health Leadership Program, she co-authored Achieving Health Equity in the United States. Indeed, Victoria is a strong advocate for the sickle cell community. Welcome, Victoria.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. As mentioned, I am Victoria Ravel, public health practitioner and proud board member of Bridges Pointe Incorporated. Again, I want to thank Shanika and everyone who has joined today and give you another welcome to our International Sickle Cell Virtual Symposium. Thank you all so much for joining us. Today, I am excited. We have a panel of experts who are just absolutely dynamic in each one of their fields. I want to go ahead and get started, but before I do, I want to first acknowledge the intrinsic expertise and value that each one of you bring today. So whether you're patients or providers or pharmacists or friends or loved ones of people with sickle cell, we definitely want to acknowledge your expertise that you bring to the table, and we look forward to hearing from you throughout today's International Symposium. Within our list of panelists, our very first expert panelist will be Dr. Little. Dr. Little has served as the director at UNC in the sickle cell program. She's held this position for the past year, and she's an experienced adult hematologist who is interested in red blood cell characteristics and multi-site databases. Our second expert panelist is our pharmacist, Dr. Chen. Dr. Chen is the clinical pharmacist in benign hematology at the University of North Carolina's Medical Center in Chapel Hill. She is responsible for the management of pain and hydroxyurea in patients with sickle cell disease. Dr. Chen's research interest focuses on sickle cell disease. Our third expert panelist is Dr. Strauss. Dr. Strauss's research has focused on the epidemiology, risk factors, and prevention of pulmonary and central nervous system complications regarding sickle cell disease. He serves on the American Society of Hematology Sickle Cell Task Force and the Sickle Cell Pain Guideline Panel. Our fourth expert panelist is Dr. DeCastro. Dr. DeCastro is an associate professor of medicine. Additionally, she's also the director of clinical translational research for the Sickle Cell Disease Research Center of Excellence and clinical chief of benign hematology at the University of Pittsburgh. She has co-authored more than 45 manuscripts, each addressing the psychosocial issues, pulmonary hypertension, drug development, and pregnancy of sickle cell disease. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening, and welcome. Let's go ahead and get started with Dr. Little. Dr. Little, we have a variety of people on today's International Symposium. Could you share with us what exactly is sickle cell and how is it being handled or impacted during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Thank you very much for including me in this panel. It's really lovely to be here. Sickle cell is an inherited anemia that results in the hemoglobin, which is packed inside the red cell. When it has delivered its oxygen, which is the job of hemoglobin, it'll suddenly stick together like Legos. So normally the red cell is packed with hemoglobin that's just free, but when it delivers oxygen, it can suddenly click together and make sticks. It's like putting a stick inside a balloon. And that can result in red cells that break open. So people with sickle cell can often have yellow, the whites of their eyes will turn yellow. And it's because their red cells are breaking open because of these sticks of like hemoglobins that lined up together that are breaking open the red cells. So that causes an anemia. And the stuff that's inside red cells is pretty potent, and it can beat up the blood vessel lining. So you can have both a low red cell count because your red cells are breaking open, and you can also have what we call vascular disease, or blood vessels that aren't quite normal. And that can involve the brain, the heart, the lungs, the kidneys, the liver, and it's one of the things that can cause the pain. So it's a complicated disease, and I think because people are getting better now, are living through childhood, which they used to not do 50 years ago. People are doing great through their childhood years, or doing better through their childhood years. That now we have a population that is really suffering from, 25 or 30 years of having these red cells break open and sort of constant damage. And so I think we're just learning what that's going to mean for our patients as they're in their 30s and 40s. And patients are trying to figure out how to cope with that. COVID has been like an additional, blow to everybody. I think for people with sickle cell, I've been very impressed with how people have been able to, in general, stay safe. I think people with sickle cell understand the consequences of getting sick and brushing up against these big problems. And so people have been really great about wearing masks, staying isolated, but it's obviously been tough for everyone.
Thank you. Dr. DeCastro, how has healthcare changed in the past 5 years for the sickle cell community? And what do you predict will be in the next 5 to 10 years for sickle cell patients as research continues to advance?
Hi, thank you very much for inviting me to participate in that activity. And before I move on to answer your question, just wanted to take a moment to remember those people that have lived with sickle cell disease and are no longer here. The background of my my image is a work of art made by one of my sickle cell patients during one of her long admission in our hospital. And when she was leaving, she left this picture or art in one of the walls of the center of the hospital. And I always will remember her, and with her other individuals living and that have lived with sickle cell disease. In order to answer your question, which can take me the whole hour, but I hopefully will not, I think that the 5-10 last year for sickle cell disease have been very good year for sickle cell disease from the point of view of developing therapy. And as most of you know, over the last 3 years, specifically since November of 2019, 3 disease-modifying drugs, mean drugs that were developed with the participation of sickle cell patients and for the management of sickle cell disease, have been approved by the FDA. And that means that after a lag of 20 years of that, we have the one and only until 3 years ago drug hydroxyurea. Now we have more options available for what I denominate co-management or multimodality management of individuals with sickle cell disease. That together with the everyday development of mobile technology and phone and computer-based programs that goes from evaluating and managing psychosocial issues for sickle cell patients that have always for years been put behind, as well as mobile technology and IT programs that tend to look into what the patient feels, what the patient wants to, and what the individual with sickle cell feel that is important for them. And at the same time, evaluating a timely aspect of pain, depression, anxiety, and how things like the weather, how much they walk, how much they do or not do impact their disease and the management that they're doing. Lastly, I think that social media, which is this activity today is an example of that, and other social media platform have helped have become a way not only to expressing and becoming more visible sickle cell, but also even to do studies that will hopefully help us in regard with developing better patient-related outcomes for sickle cell disease. So what I'm expecting for the next 5 to 10 years? Part of it is an explosion of these new technologies, drugs, the possibility of doing multi-drug therapy, and the possibility of really seeing if these drugs that have been recently approved impact the quality of life of the individual living with sickle cell disease, impact their morbidity and mortality. And lastly, I'm hoping that bone marrow transplant, gene therapy, and other curative therapy for sickle cell disease become first more available to patients, second really more streamlined therapies, and third also another way of improving the life of individuals with sickle cell disease.
Thank you, Dr. DeCastro. I think you make an excellent point when you mentioned that there were 3 new sickle cell drugs that were approved just in the last 3 years. And that really, until 2017, hydroxyurea was actually the mainstay of therapy. And as we know it, the only treatment option for nearly 20 years. So as we move forward in thinking about new drugs and innovations and treatment, our next question will go to Dr. Strauss. Dr. Strauss, could you tell us a little bit more when we think about specifically drug treatments? Tell us, what is Valoxator and what are its benefits? We know it's often referred to as Oxbryta, but tell us a little bit more about it and the benefits.
Dr. Strauss, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Thank you. So voxelotor increases the ability of sickle hemoglobin to hold on to oxygen. And by doing that, it stays well oxygenated, and that can keep it from forming those chains or polymers that Dr. Little talked about just a moment ago. And that reduces the breakdown of the red blood cells, the sickle red blood cells in people with sickle cell disease. And the main effect that was shown in the studies was that it can raise people's hemoglobin. So on average, the hemoglobin increases by 1, which if your hemoglobin's 6, that's a big change. Going from 6 to 7 is a change that we think that will hopefully change how people feel. What they did not show in their initial studies was whether people had reduced pain. So the number of pain episodes was fairly similar in the people that received voxelotor and those that received the placebo or sugar pill. And because of that, I'm using it mostly in people that I think the low hemoglobin is having a direct impact on their energy, their fatigue, their breathing, to see if it helps them. And I think that we're still learning, how to use this drug. It was approved just in the late fall, and we're still learning who it's the best drug for, but we're learning this together with our patients. So one of the things that we try to do is to collect information not just on people's function and how far they can walk in their labs, but also asking them about how they are able to get through their daily life using some instruments to see how they're doing before and to see how they're doing after they're on voxelotor, to try to learn more about how to use it effectively and who it helps the most.
Thank you, Dr. Strauss. I think you're making an excellent point. And thinking about the use and the effectiveness, Dr. Little, tell us a little bit more about voxelotor. Specifically, we know that it's been said to be the first affinity oxygen modulator. But how is this different from hydroxyurea?
Yeah, I've been trying to think about how to talk about this. And this probably is not a great way to, but I'm going to take a flyer. Anyone else remembers that game when you were a kid, Red Rover, where you'd link your arms in the playground and try to prevent people from breaking through? And it's like the polymer. You've got a whole bunch of hemoglobins, that's the polymer. Fetal hemoglobin, so if your arms are full of oxygen, you can't link your arms together, so you can't make a polymer. That's how voxelotor works. it keeps the oxygen in your arms longer if you're a hemoglobin molecule, so that you can't link up hemoglobins and make that polymer. And as JJ pointed out, that may be good when it goes from being used in 200 people to going to being used in thousands of people, because that's when we'll really see how it works. Fetal hemoglobin instead works by changing the type of hemoglobin that's in the chain. Instead of being sickle hemoglobin, if you're lucky, up to 2 out of 10 of those hemoglobins are fetal hemoglobins. And they're like hemoglobins that only have one arm. So they can't link together, they can't join in the chain. So the chains become short, and you don't get these long chains that beat up on the red cell or make the red cells break open. That's the difference between the two drugs. One changes the way the sickle hemoglobin acts, but doesn't change the sickle hemoglobin. Hydroxyurea, that's voxelotor. Hydroxyurea, non-sickle hemoglobin. And it's a kind of non-sickle. So they both have risks and benefits, and they both probably change the way the disease acts. And we understand better how Hydrea does that because we've been using it for 20 years. And I think we're going to learn in the next few years how voxelotor works, but I think it's very exciting. But as JJ said, it has to be the right person to try it. It's not for everybody, I don't think.
Thank you. And I think that's an excellent point as well, because whenever we're thinking about medications in general, but especially new medications, I think we always have to be aware of adverse side effects that may occur. Dr. Chen, could you tell us what are those adverse side effects, if any, taking this particular drug, and is there a plan of action for potential negative side effects?
Right. Anyway, I'm Shadi, and thank you for inviting me. It is a huge honor to be here, and happy World Sickle Day to everyone. So yes, side effects is one of the huge issues, and it's a challenge because if patients don't feel good after taking the medication, then they're going to stop taking it. And I always tell patients, if they stop taking it, then they're not getting the full benefit of the drug. So for voxelotor, so again, that is the tablet taken once a day, okay, with or without food. But I found out the reason why the 3 most common adverse effects that was reported in the study was nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. All right, it's because the tablet has a little bit of polyethylene glycol, which is basically your Miralax, and it has an iron coating. And we know that, this causes nausea and diarrhea. And I was like, well, duh. So what do I tell patients? Well, like what I tell any patients with iron tablets, that yes, we ask you to take with or without food, but if you have that tendency for nausea, and again, it's easy to see. I ask them how they do with their hydroxyurea. And if they tell me, oh yeah, I have issues with hydroxyurea the same way, then I'm going to tell them to take it with food. And I'm likely going to tell them to separate it from their hydroxyurea if they have these issues with hydroxyurea. So that's the first thing. The diarrhea, again, it's minor. Well, so whatever that's reported in the clinical studies are all minor. So what I counsel patients is, as long as they're not having loose stools more than 3 times a day, they're not getting dehydrated, then I would say, good. But connect with me, chat with me, or chat with your providers. Call us, don't be a stranger. And this is going to be important for patients, especially when we know keeping hydrated, especially with the summer months, are going to be important for these patients. And allergy reactions is one of the most important, counseling points that I give patients. So, and that's the voxelotor. But I think the main side effect from voxelotor is unfortunately the financial toxicity. This drug costs about $10,000 a month. So I called the North Carolina Medicaid today to confirm, and they don't have it in their preferred list. So I'm not sure whether that will change, but that means that majority of the patients on NC Medicaid may not have this drug. So one of the options that I've gone through is really helping patients get, assistance from the manufacturer. I get the drug from the company. So that's one of the options. But this is one thing I warn the patient beforehand. You know, this drug is going to be very expensive. You know, don't fall off your chair, don't faint when we tell you about the price. And don't worry, because you're going to get help. And that would be what I usually counsel patients on side effect for voxelotor.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen and friends, I'm so excited to announce that we will transition now to our very first trivia question within our international symposium. If you will, please turn your attention to the slide that will be placed on the screen and do your very best to answer this question correctly. So this is our very first trivia question, and you can answer this question by putting your selection in the chat box. So the question reads, which symptoms indicate a patient with sickle cell disease should seek care in the emergency department? Which symptoms indicate that a patient with sickle cell disease should seek care in the emergency department? For this particular question, there is just one answer that we're looking for. Is it A, experiencing nausea and diarrhea, B, paralysis of weakness, especially on one side of the body, C, reporting moderate knee or wrist pain, or D, a fever, sneezing, and coughing? Please choose the correct answer at this time and place it in the chat. Thank you all so much. So as we continue our discussion on new drugs, let's dive a little bit deeper into the variety. Dr. DeCastro, tell us a little bit about crizanlizumab and the benefits of this particular drug.
Are you on mute?
Yes, I'm trying to get off mute. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
you're good.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I was also trying to put in the screen, share my screen, but I guess I have a disabled screen. So crizanlizumab is a new drug that is an antibody, a humanized, so make for humans antibody against a protein called P-selectin. P-selectin, thank you. P-selectin is a, sorry, let's see if I can share this. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
So this protein is basically produced in the lining of the vessels here in the endothelium, and is also produced by platelets and a little bit by white blood cells. This protein activate white cells and platelet and increase the adhesion of these two blood cells, in addition to the red cell, to the sickle red cell, to the lining of the vessels, the vein and the arteries, and causing then vasocclusion. So this drug was developed this drug was developed to evaluate how this antibody prevent vasocclusion. And the study, the key study show that the infusion of this drug, crizanlizumab, the commercial name is Adavio, in over 54 weeks, reduced the median annual rate of pain episode that lead to visit to a healthcare facility by 45%. So compared to placebo, and also increased the percentage of patients who did not experience a vaso-occlusive episode versus those treated with the placebo. So based on that capacity of the drug to decreasing the frequency of pain episode and the experiencing a new pain episode, is that this drug was approved in 2019 to be used by any patient with sickle cell disease 16 and older as a monthly infusion. Of course, there is a specific indication for that, including patients that have frequent vaso-occlusive episode, that have intensive vaso-occlusive episode, etc.
Thank you, Dr. DeCastro. As we think about additional drugs, Dr. Strauss, share with us about L-glutamine, commonly referred to as Endari, please, and its benefits.
Sure. So L-glutamine was the first of the recent round of approvals for sickle cell disease. And what it is an amino acid, basically a nutraceutical, something that's both a nutritional supplement, but was studied as a pharmaceutical or as a drug, that probably improves the ability of people's red blood cells to deal with oxidative stress. And because of that, there was fewer episodes of sickle cell pain in the people that received the study medication and fewer episodes of acute chest syndrome. And that's what led to its approval. I think it's a drug that definitely helps some people, and I know that we have someone on our panel today of people with sickle cell disease that might be able to talk about their experience with the medication. But it is a little bit harder to take because it's a large quantity of medication. So basically, depending on your weight, people take 2 or 3 packets if they're adult size. Some of the children can get by with 1 packet of a powder that can be mixed into a smoothie or a drink twice a day. So it's a little bit more difficult for people to take than a usual medication in a pill. I think one of the advantages is that since it's a nutritional supplement, the side effect profile is pretty good. People don't have quite as many side effects as we see with many of our traditional pharmaceutical products.
Thank you, Dr. Strauss. So as we think about each of these medications, we often realize that people with sickle cell may be on multiple medications at one time. So Dr. Chen, as we think about this, tell us, are there any negative side effects associated with taking Endari, voxelotor, or crizolizumab with other medications?
That is a great question. And I think as a pharmacist, I do tell all new practicing pharmacists nowadays that there are more and more drug interactions. And I think, for an old practitioner like me, FDA has put so much more emphasis on drug interaction and, and even initial drug studies, the phase 1 studies really look at whether the drugs are metabolized by the liver by this enzyme system called cytochrome P450. And unfortunately, voxelotor is one of them. So what do I counsel patients on? Well, where the food is concerned, grapefruit. Whether it's the fruit or the concentrate or the juice. I will tell the patients, I'm sorry, I hope you do not like grapefruit because this is something you need to avoid. What's the effect? It could actually increase the effect of the voxelotor. So because of that, I tell them, if you can, don't do it. No grapefruit. And then how about St. John's wort? Some patients may take that to stabilize their mood. So for St. John's wort, it's the other way. They basically reduce the effect of the voxelotor. So for this reason, I say no St. John's wort as well. And I would counsel the patients each and every time you have a medication changes, or when you see the physician or any physician, let them know you're on voxelotor because there is going to be a potential drug-drug interaction. And this is what they have to tell every new practitioner they see, whether it's a physician or when they go to the pharmacy. So this is a very important counseling point for voxelotor. For Endari, not so much. I do agree with Dr. Strauss that, there's less interaction because it is a nutritional supplement. But what a lot of patients have told me is that they hate it. So thick, and I can tell them, put it with your yogurt, put with your smoothie, and they'll say, I don't like milk. So that is a huge issue, and unfortunately, that's a main reason why patients stop taking it. So and the GI upset with the glutamine. So again, I do tell them to split up the packets a little bit at a time. So that is with the glutamine. Now with the crizanlizumab, that is an infusion. So, and no, it is very good. It's not metabolized by that same liver enzyme system. So I do not anticipate any interaction. The only problem with crizanlizumab is really because it's a monoclonal antibody, it's a protein. So some patients may get a little bit more backache or joint pain with it. And, you know, I would counsel patients to maybe like a little bit of Tylenol a day of infusion and after that. But otherwise, I mean, it is really a very much cleaner drug compared to voxelotor.
Thank you. So as we think a little bit further about the healthcare system, we recognize that oftentimes there are many barriers to receiving sickle cell treatment. Sometimes they can even include access, insurance, availability, and even education. Dr. Little, tell us what you and your clinic may be doing to address barriers.
You know, never enough is the answer. You know, what we learned, I was in Cleveland before I was in Chapel Hill, and I think we really learned that patients, you need to make things as simple for patients as possible because their lives are very complicated. They're trying to deal with a chronic illness, they're trying to have families, they're trying to have jobs, they're trying to go to school. So both in Cleveland and in Chapel Hill, we have tried to bring the providers to the patients as much as possible so that if you came to one visit, you might be able to see a mental health provider, a pharmacist, and a physical therapist at the same time. I think everyone on this call who's a provider would agree that the more you interact with other providers to try to make sure that you're doing the best thing for your patients with sickle cell disease, the better the patients are going to do. And I think sickle cell patients always remind me that you have to decide together what's the most important thing for the patient and then try to get that done. Like you can't give anybody a list of 15 different things that you think matter. You have to focus on one or two things, try to get those resolved and then move on. So we really try to prioritize those things that we think will really benefit the patients. You know, 16 things that all of us should do, you know, lose weight, you know, be happy, you know, those things, you know, you always end up with those incredibly long lists, and we really try to focus. We try to make the care easier for the patients, and we try to be very clear about what our goals are, and we collaborate as much as we can.
Thank you. So as we conclude this particular portion of our International Symposium, Dr. Strauss, if you would, please tell us in regard to those medications, Endari, voxelotor, or crizanlizumab, could you address if they actually impact the complications of multi-organ damage or any other complications that may be caused by sickle cell disease?
For all three medications, the primary thing that was studied were really pain events and either acute visits for pain or hospitalizations for pain. And I think we have good evidence that crizanlizumab reduces those painful events. Some evidence as well that Endari, that L-glutamine does the same thing, and less for voxelotor. We don't really have evidence of that from voxelotor. As far as end organ dysfunction, that's not what the studies were designed to measure. So we don't know the answer to that, whether being on crizanlizumab for 5 or 10 years is going to prevent kidney disease or prevent people having the sickle cell retinopathy and losing some vision potentially, or heart, pulmonary hypertension and sickle cell disease. We don't know the answer to those questions, and hopefully we'll be able to learn that information as we use them more in people, but only if we're deliberate in how we think about collecting information. And some of that should be us, people telling us how they're doing. Are they doing better? Can they do more? Do they have less impact of pain or other sickle cell complications in their daily life?
Thank you so much. Dr. Chin, Dr. Little, Dr. Strauss, and Dr. DeCastro, we are grateful for your time this evening. And we're also excited about the possibilities that are coming along in the future regarding sickle cell disease. And at this particular time, we are very, very excited to think about our second interactive activity, which is actually quite popular. As we all know, with the invention of social media, we really now have a nation within a nation, that at the click of a button, we have the power to influence many people at one time, whether it's with what we're typing or with what we're posting. So in honor of World Sickle Cell Day, we are getting ready to take a selfie. So I'll ask that at this time, everyone please look into the camera and please put on your mask if you have one. And of course, a big smile for our World Sickle Cell Day photo and then selfie. All right, is everyone ready? We'll take our photo on 3 and we'll say together, World Sickle Cell Day. I'll give everyone just a minute. It looks like I see a couple of folks trying to still put on those masks. All right, 30 more seconds there. I see a couple of people getting those masks on. Thank you all so much. All right, everyone, on 3. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you all. And again, happy World Sickle Cell Day. For those that want to take selfies, we encourage you to please do so as well at this time. And do not forget to hashtag Bridges Point or Mask Up for Sickle Cell, World Sickle Cell Day, or Shine the Light on Sickle Cell. The second portion of our international symposium allows us to hear specifically and directly from sickle cell warriors, also known as patients with sickle cell. Ladies and gentlemen and friends, I'm excited because we have a dynamic group of sickle cell warriors. Our first is Mr. Andre Harris. Andre is a recent Bachelor of Social Work graduate from Fayetteville State University. He's also a Ronald McNair Scholar, and he's involved right now in the MSW PhD program at the University of Houston's Graduate College of Social Work. Mr. Harris's research interests are concentrated in how sickle cell impacts the social determinants of health, rare diseases, and Black men. Our next sickle cell warrior is Mr. Patrick Minor. Patrick is a graduate of North Carolina Central University. In addition, he is a business intelligence analyst and he's CEO of O Minor LLC. Patrick is deeply inspired by the faith of his rural community, and he's established a scholarship named PAT, also known as Patrick Aspiring Truth Scholarship. He established this scholarship during his sophomore year of college to promote sickle cell awareness. Our next sickle cell warrior is Kyle Smith. A proud homegrown Philadelphia native, Kyle Smith's ability to bring people together for a greater cause is what has allowed him to maximize donor capacity for various nonprofits. Through working closely with both patient and provider stakeholders of the sickle cell community, it's Kyle's hope to create a purposeful alignment in the strategic care for those with sickle cell. Additionally, Kyle is an emerging leader in the nonprofit sector. Our next sickle cell warrior is Chanel Bynum. Chanel is a 17-year-old sickle cell warrior and a 2020 high school graduate from Northern High School in Durham. Chanel has sickle cell SS disease and was diagnosed as an infant. She will be attending Durham Tech in the fall and later transferring to Johnson & Wales to pursue her bachelor's degree in business and fashion. Chanel believes that through her sickle cell experience, she can reach back and help other young people. Our next sickle cell warrior is Shirley Miller. Shirley has more than 20 years of experience in sickle cell disease program development and in clinical trials and patient advocacy. She has served on the Comprehensive Centers for Sickle Cell Clinical Trials Consortium and the NHLVI Sickle Cell Advisory Committee, as well as a host of other committees regarding education and sickle cell. I want to give a warm welcome to each of our expert panelists who are our sickle cell warriors. And I want to go ahead and jump right in with Chanel. Chanel, could you tell us, are you taking any of the new medications that were mentioned a little while ago by our pharmacists and our doctors? If so, please feel free to share your experience regarding those particular medications and their treatments.
Yes, I am taking the new medication, Oxbrita, and so far I think it's doing really good. I'm just still trying to learn how to just get medicine, you know, taking it every day at the same time. So I actually like the medicine.
Thank you. So when we think about this particular medicine, we understand that throughout life, we all have transitions. Tell us a little bit, if you will, about your transition from pediatric care to adult care. Did you have a fear about transition? And if so, how did you work through that to overcome it?
I mean, I haven't really transitioned yet, although I have been thinking about it. And just thinking about it makes me a little nervous because, you know, everybody knows me at the pediatrician. So it's scary, but I think I'll be able to adjust to it. So, yeah.
Chanel, is there anything that could help you adjust to it?
I'd say like the support of my mom, my family, and friends too as well, and the doctors.
Thank you. So it sounds like everyone has a role to play in that transition process. It sounds like you mentioned your family, friends, or loved ones, as well as doctors. Thank you, Chanel.
You're welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Kyle, could you share with us a little bit about your last crisis experience and how you were able to persevere through this experience?
Sure. Thank you for having me today. My last crisis experience, you know, I try to manage the majority of my pain at home without going to the hospital or emergency department. But usually I have crisis in my back and my legs. And, you know, I don't have to tell too many warriors who are on a Zoom call how debilitating the pain is. So I'm fortunate in that I've really just been able to listen to my body and really get a sense of what type of crisis is going to be in terms of severity. And that helps me really just think about what I need to do in terms of ensuring that I'm able to push through as soon as possible. When it comes to, do I need a heating pad? Do I need to take some Motrin? Do I need to take something a little stronger? Do I just need to maybe go to sleep and get some rest? How can I keep my stress level down a little bit? So yeah, I can't tell you when that crisis was, like an exact date, but those are some of the things that I like to try to do.
Excellent. It sounds like I heard you mention there a couple of home remedies.
Absolutely, 100%. I try to stay out of the hospital by all means necessary. So I try to, you know, use all the home remedies that I can.
Excellent. So Andre, speaking of home remedies, are there any particular ones that you use or any other preventative therapies or measures that you found to be most effective in alleviating some of those really, I would say, the impacts of sickle cell disease?
Yeah, so I wish I could find it. Normally I have it on hand, but I have a balm made from Dr. Bronner's, and that balm is just something that it's topical that I use. So when I'm having any type of pain, I use that, and that really helps. And then also I've been using a chiropractor a lot lately, and that has helped. someone recommended it to me, and going to the chiropractor really started to help with my back pain and my neck pain.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. So we recognize that people with sickle cell, just like many other people, have goals and dreams and aspirations in life that they wish to fulfill. Shirley, tell us a little bit about some of those life goals that you have and any advice that you'd like to give for those with sickle cell who are working to achieve those goals.
Well, I'm probably the oldest one here living with sickle cell. I'm 64 years old. So I'm kind of on the end of my career. I'll plan to retire next year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I have sickle cell SS, and I actually had more problems as a child than I do as an adult. And I went to college. I have my bachelor's in business administration and my master's in psychology, because my thing was, how can you create more self-efficacy in persons with sickle cell? How can you get them to think more positively and believe they can do more, and not just be identified by having sickle cell, but be identified by, whatever they want to do in life. And that's kind of like how I live my life. I don't have much pain, and when I do, I use my heating pad mostly, and I don't take a lot of opioids. I pretty much do Tylenol or Motrin. I'm on Oxbryta, and I was on hydroxyurea. And it worked for me, the hydroxyurea, but my problem was hemolysis. And that is when your cells break down very fast. And the hydroxyurea didn't address that issue. And I felt like if my cells were breaking down very fast, it might impact my organs. And so I got concerned about that. So I asked about the Oxbryta when it came out. And it actually has really done a good job on lowering my bilirubin and making sure that I'm not burning as many cells as I was before. But I know a lot of people have sickle cell, and they may have to put their dreams on hold because they're trying to learn how to manage the disease and everything, and that's okay. I tell people all the time, that's okay. It doesn't matter how long it takes you to get your degree or whatever. It just matters that you do. So I grew up in Florida. My parents always wanted me to, try to do as best as I could. And so I have accomplished a lot of my dreams. I serve on a different sickle cell boards, and, I've even had the opportunity to approve the Andari, because I sit on the FDA board. So I've done a lot of things. I've been very, very happy to have experienced in my life with sickle cell, which if you would have told me I was doing that back in high school, I would do that, and back in high school, I wouldn't have believed you, because I would have said, no way.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Shirley. What advice do you have for others who are living with sickle cell? It sounds like you've been extremely blessed to be able to accomplish many of your dreams and goals. Any advice for those living with sickle cell who are hoping to do the same in accomplishing their goals?
Yeah, I mean, I would say just be compliant, work with your doctor, because the doctor is going to be your best friend, and making sure that you are on the right therapy that you should be on, and be positive. I mean, there are people who have everything. There's people who have diabetes, have heart disease, COPD. Everybody has something. And so I don't take it as sickle cell as being, oh, it's so bad, it's so bad. And you have to have a positive mind about it, and just believe that you can do better. And I always believed, I'm like, this cannot be my life. It's got to be more than this. So I strive to make sure that it happened in my life, and it did, and I met wonderful people. A lot of the doctors that are on the panel, I've met them, and you can learn as much as you want about sickle cell. I mean, it's out there. If you go to the conferences, I went to the conferences, I learned what was going on in sickle cell world. And then I wrote my book, and it was therapy for me to get out those feelings that I had. They were negative feelings that I had growing up, believing that, you know, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this, but you can. And so I always tell people, just have a positive attitude, and the sky's the limit. It really is. I mean, even as a person living with sickle cell, you can help someone else, and you can help the drug companies understand how some of these trials work better for you. And so I've been on panels like that, and it really is rewarding. So I just say, don't limit yourself.
Thank you so much, Shirley. I think that is excellent advice. And speaking of being positive, I think you're exactly right. That's something that we all have to continue to persevere with, or without sickle cell. We all need to be positive.
Exactly.
And we need to continue to push forward to achieve all of our dreams and our goals.
Right.
So as we transition into the next part of our international symposium, we have another opportunity, everyone, to answer our trivia question. If you'll please refer to our screen again for trivia question number 2. Just a friendly reminder that we hope that you answer the trivia question by using the chat feature. Our second question says, which symptoms, let's see, we'll wait for it to be loaded here on the screen. Excellent, thank you. All right. What are some of the clinical treatments to addressing symptoms in patients with sickle cell disease? Our question reads, what are some of the clinical treatments to addressing symptoms in patients with sickle cell disease? All right, I see people answering away. Again, we hope that you use the chat feature to put in your answer. We have 4 answers, and gentle reminder, there's only one answer choice for this question that is correct. We have A, hydroxyurea, L-glutamine/Endari, or B, transfusions/infusions, C, opioids, or D, all of the above. We'll give just a few more seconds to answer this particular question. And remember, there's just one answer that we're hoping that you give, the correct one, of course, in the chat box. Thank you so much, everyone. So as we think about disease maintenance and many of those transitions that people with sickle cell often face, Patrick, tell us about maintenance, disease maintenance in particular, and what advice you might give an incoming college student who has sickle cell.
An incoming college student, I would tell them, find a university that they could feel at home at, because I feel like that at home feeling and that at home vibe kind of ties back to the other conversations that's been having. It keeps that positive mindset, the goals up front, the support system. So that would be my first advice. And from there, that will help you maintain that disease, having those social pieces to your college life.
Thank you, Patrick. Are there any other things that would be helpful?
Definitely staying and maintaining that relationship with your doctor. I know when I went to North Carolina Central, being that Duke was, 10 minutes up the street, it allowed me great access, non-COVID era, to be able to get back and forth to my doctor if I had any issues. So definitely building that relationship with any type of sickle cell clinic or hematologist that they can when they get to school. Because it could be different from back home. It could be different from the pediatric. And I didn't join any support groups when I first went to NCCU, but I did have a direct support group that I could go to, depend on who knew I had sickle cells, because I wasn't a big advocate of sickle cells in 2013, 2014 when I began school. But the more and more I got into those groups where I felt like I could express myself, that's where that support group of friends who I could call on and could trust, that's when I formed that.
Thank you, Patrick. So Shirley, that really relates directly back to what you were saying earlier. And Shirley, from a patient's perspective, from a sickle cell warrior's perspective, are you able to identify any barriers to medical adherence? If so, share with us, if you will, just a few, and how you may have been able to overcome those.
That's a good question. I think probably the most common barrier for some people is transportation. I actually work in a comprehensive sickle cell center, and I can see where people who live in rural areas may not have the transportation, or they may not have access to a doctor in that area who is fully trained in sickle cell disease. Now, there are things you can do, like in the program I work in, we have, we call them echo sessions, and basically they're virtual grand rounds where doctors in rural areas can call in and get the consultation of a specialist who is specialized in sickle cell disease, and they can bring their case study of a patient that they may have that might be difficult for them, and get other physicians to weigh in on that care of that patient. So when people are like in geographic areas where they don't have access to a specialist, that seems to be the next best thing, you know. And even some people who don't have a hematologist and they go to a primary care physician, the same thing can work. If they partner with the hematologist, even if it's outside of the echo session, if they partner with the hematologist, somebody that can help them with the sickle cell side, and then they do the other stuff, it helps a lot. And then it also helps the primary care physician to learn more about sickle cell disease. But I would say transportation and access to a specialist would be the barriers.
Thank you. Shirley, do you have any suggestions for how maybe new or budding organizations could overcome some of those barriers that you just mentioned regarding transportation and access so that they can better serve sickle cell patients?
Well, in our program, we have a transportation service that will pick up patients. And it's the most novel little thing, because you could see when the driver arrives at the door and when the patient gets in the car, and it starts the clock going right then, and how long it'll take before they get to the hospital for their appointment. I know everybody doesn't have access to something like that, but I would suggest some type of transportation vouchers or something like that that would help take that burden off of the patient. I know everybody doesn't have a car, you know, and they may take public transportation. I've even known of patients to take public transportation to a hospital when they're sick. And I think that is phenomenal, because I don't think I could do that if you're in a full crisis and you're taking the bus to get to the hospital. But people do it. They do it. And it just calls on the strength that you have within. You know, you have to pull out of there that deep, you know, feelings to say, I'm going to do what I need to do in order to get the care that I need. But I do prefer Medicaid sometimes has transportation available for patients, but I do would suggest that having some type of transportation, you know, would help a lot of patients.
Thank you. I think you've hit on a very important point again, when we're thinking about the social determinants of health, that it really matters if people have access to the very things that they need in order to be compliant, or in order to try to move forward and persevere, even with sickle cell disease.
Right.
So Andre, this week in various parts of our nation, people are celebrating Men's Health Week. As a man, how are you setting an example for others regarding your sickle cell journey?
That's a loaded question. So as you read in my bio, men's health is something that I've been working with as a social worker or a public health social worker to really advance the gap in health equity in men's health. A lot of us know that a lot of men do not go to the doctor like women do. And there's a lot of social issues that prevent men from seeking and accessing help, even when it comes to behavioral health issues. So I try to be a vocal advocate, as it was mentioned earlier. And one of the most powerful things that we can do, especially during this time of COVID-19, where we really can't gather, is amplify your voice on social media. So I am a co-founder of an organization called Black Men in Public Health, and we help amplify that voice, educate Black men about public health. I am also a member of the APHA, and so we try to bring together people who are practitioners in public health, and then we try to amplify their voices and just make sure that education is there. And I really think another thing to answer your question is, as an advocate, as a man, to really commemorate or to recognize Black Men's Health Week and Men's Health Week and Men's Health Month, is that there is a lot of, like we talked about with Ms. Shirley, social determinants of health that also affect men, and then Black men specifically, more disproportionately than women. And so when we really get policies in place to address these things, we could actually close that gap. So I have been working with a lot of organizations to make sure we amplify those voices about how to close the gap and how to reach health equity when it comes to Black men and health.
Thank you, Andre. So speaking of impact, Patrick, how has COVID-19 impacted not just your work life, but also your social life? We've heard throughout our international symposium that the social aspect really is so important. Are there any mechanisms that you're using to cope?
Yes. So I've been working from home going on about 3.5 months now. And as far as it being on a social level, I'm a lot more distance from people than I normally would be. I'm a social butterfly, and I feed off people's energies a lot to help me maintain my own disease and inspire them through my own story. So not having that social and that physical contact anymore, it's really slowed that down for me. And I've been struggling with finding it on social media again. I have a good following on social media still, but I just haven't been able to get back in the rhythm that I usually do, because I usually use a lot of external events to feed the social media platform. But now that I have not been attending any of those, it's just hard to find a balance right now on a social media standpoint. But just coping with it, I've been working more lately, and that's adding back some of the social pieces through work. So that's really the only way I've been finding a way right now, because it's kind of hard to get out if it's nothing to do with kind of making the world go around.
Understandable. Thank you. So as we think about what's happening now, the present, specifically with sickle cell in our nation and throughout the world, we understand that we really have an opportunity to impact the future, and moreover, future generations who will have sickle cell. Kyle, if there's just one message that you could share with future generations who have sickle cell, what would that message be?
Wow. One message is tough. I'm trying to think, specifically, like you said, just within the day and age that we are living in today, the COVID world, George Floyd and civil rights, Black Lives Matter world that we live in. I think that it's a story that, has been going on for forever. And I think that we see such a great parallel in terms of the disparity you know, within when it comes to Black people in this nation and racism, and also just the disparity that we see with sickle cell patients within our healthcare system, you know, and just really trying to restructure a whole system and entity is something that is on at the forefront of my mind at all times, and just realizing that how powerful our stories are, you know, and how they can really create change, you know. And I've been able to be a testament to that, to be able to witness it, to have a seat at the table with different hospital entities here in Philadelphia, you know, and, you know, the top of the food chain, you know, when it comes to CEOs who are running entire hospital organizations. So my message to everyone living with sickle cell would be to just to really be comfortable with your truth and your story, you know, and share that with the world, you know, like not to be corny or, you know, cheeky when it comes to the title of what today is, but it's shine your light, you know. And I think by shining our light, we'll be able to have like an incredible impact on this world for sure.
Thank you. Excellent. Kyle, Patrick, Andre, Shirley, and Chanel, I want to thank you all so much for taking the time to share your stories with us as warriors with sickle cell, and as expert panelists. We are extremely grateful for your story and that you've decided to share it with us in our international symposium. We have one final opportunity for everyone on our symposium this evening to get involved, and that's our third sickle cell trivia question. So if you'll refer with me to the screen, we'll have our third sickle cell trivia question. And remember, there's only one correct answer, so please feel free to type that answer in the chat box. All right, everyone, regarding the following answers on the screen, which one is a cure for sickle cell disease? Regarding the following answers on the screen, which one is a cure for sickle cell disease? Is it A, penicillin, B, opioids, C, bone marrow transplant, or D, hydroxyurea? Excellent. Thank you so much, everyone. I see the answers coming in. Thank you all for answering this question. At this time, we are absolutely delighted. We've gotten a chance during our symposium to hear from our doctors, our pharmacists, and our sickle cell warriors who are experts in this particular area. I want to now introduce Kayla Atwater. She will tell us a little bit about her story, and I'm sure that you all know that we are already in for a treat. Kayla, if you will, please unmute yourself and tell us about your bone marrow transplant.
It is. Hello, everyone. My name is Kayla Atwater. I am 16 years old, and I'm just going to tell you guys a little bit about my story and me dealing with sickle cell and me going through the bone marrow transplant. So me dealing with sickle cell was very, very, as most of you guys know, it was very hard to deal with. And going through the transplant is something that's like unbelievable, but it's also something exciting. And then you just like, it's mind blowing. Like, you know, you're just surprised that like you actually cured from sickle cells, like no more pain, no more medication and stuff. And for the ones that don't know what a bone marrow transplant is, a bone marrow transplant is basically, as you guys know, a bone marrow. A lot of sickle cell patients get it, different types of like illnesses and stuff, and it cures sickle cell. It depends on how your body is. A lot of people are different, and mine actually took and never came back, so that's why I say cured. But yeah.
Kayla, what was the most challenging part about having a bone marrow transplant, or actually, you know, being the recipient? What was the most challenging part for you?
Honestly, just not everything, but everything. Because it's like you're away from your family, your friends, home. You're just not, you're isolated, basically, it feels like. Like you can't, every time you go somewhere, you got to have on a mask, or you got to, you just got to suit up, and you got to be distanced from other people. It's just, it gets annoying, but also you have to stay encouraged, and you have to know that this is something that's worth it.
I heard you mention an important part at the very end. You said it is worth it.
Yes.
It really is worth it. So,
Yes.
Kayla, if you had to tell others about having a successful bone marrow transplant and being a recipient of that, what is one word, Kayla, that you would say really articulates the way that you feel?
Just stay encouraged and be strong. That's true. Yes.
Excellent. Yes. Thank you, Kayla. I think those are important words. Stay encouraged and be strong.
Thank you guys so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Kayla. I think also this evening we have Michael Reynolds, who has joined us. Michael is also a sickle cell warrior. And Michael, if you're on, please feel free to share with us your experience with any of the drugs that we've talked about this evening during our symposium. All right, it looks like we'll come right back to Michael. But in the meantime, I want to introduce Justina and have her make just a few brief announcements before we close this evening. I'm excited because she's also going to announce the winner of our trivia questions. So let me put out a full disclaimer. Everyone on our International Symposium is a winner. So Justina will announce those who have gotten all 3 answers correct, and we look forward to learning a little bit more about the prize. Justina?
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for joining our call tonight. This was put on by Pointe and Piedmont Health Services and Sickle Cell Agency. We do have 2 winners that I would like to announce. The first winner is Andre Harris, and the second one is Crystal Lewis. So shortly after, I will get you all my information so that I can let you know exactly what you won. I would like to start by discussing what I do as a patient engagement coordinator for Piedmont Health Services and Sickle Cell Agency, and also in collaboration with Pointe. We both are doing the PCORI study, which is the step-up study for transition age patients 16 to 25 years of age. On this study, patients are going to, it focuses on transitioning from pediatrics to adult side of care. And so we use peer mentoring as a tool to see how the patients will be able to move forward with being on the study and seeing how transition will work from there. Next, I would like to also let you know about Pointe. Here's our contact, well, here's their contact information. And Pointe also has a relief fund for COVID, and the link is currently posted. I will leave this up for a few seconds so you all can write it down if you do need help. Shanika, would you like to say a little bit about it?
Sure. So we have a COVID relief fund, and it's set up for patients to receive a gift card for transportation, groceries, medication, or just essential needs. And so if you go to that website, you can find the form to fill out, and please do that. It's for patients, and it doesn't matter if you're living in Durham or Raleigh or Fayetteville. We like to help, and we have been given some funding to help to do so. So just follow the link and you'll be able to fill out that form.
Okay, in Piedmont Health Services and Sickle Cell Agency, we have 7 offices and 19, we serve 19 counties. Piedmont Health Services provides comprehensive sickle cell services in the following North Carolina counties: Alamance, Frederick, Coslo, Craven, Cumberland, Forsyth, Greene, Guilford, Harnett, Hoke, Jones, Lenore, Onslow, Mecklenburg, Pamlico, Randolph, Robeson, Rockingham, and Wayne counties. So if you know any patients or anyone who has sickle cell that are within those 19 counties and may need services, we are always available. Our email address is info@piedmont.healthservices.org, and our website is www.piedmonthealthservices.org. Our phone number is 1-800-733-8297, and we will be glad to help you all.
Thank you so much, Justina and Shanika. As mentioned, everyone, these resources are available. Please do not hesitate to call either organization to ask questions, to get information, or in general to think about resources. We recognize that this is a very unique and interesting time in our country right now. So please do not hesitate if you have any questions or concerns to reach out to these organizations. We've come to the final portion of our International Symposium today, and that portion is an opportunity for us to have questions and answers. Anyone who is attending today's symposium can now put their questions in the chat box, and they will be answered by our expert panelists who are our sickle cell warriors, or our expert panelists who are our physicians and our pharmacists. Please feel free to type your questions in the chat at this time, and I'll go ahead and start off with the first question as we're waiting for them to come through. And my question specifically goes to our expert panelists who are our sickle cell warriors. My question is about allyship. So for people who do not have sickle cell, who really want to become allies in this particular struggle of sickle cell, tell us, if you will, at least 2 tasks that they can accomplish in order to become allies. For me, I feel like allyship denotes ownership. So specifically, that means having a particular responsibility when it comes to helping people in this particular struggle. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you all. Andre, could you start us off? How can someone be an ally? What are maybe 2 tasks that they can accomplish?
Sure. For me, I think the biggest thing for someone to be an ally specifically to the sickle cell community is for them to be able to listen, to understand, and be sympathetic. And to, when someone tells you that they've reached their limit, believe them and help them in any type of way. I feel I've seen a lot of people not really give the same embrace to sickle cell patients as they do to other people that suffer with chronic illnesses. So don't be so hard on them, and really understand that this disease really takes a toll on not only the physical body, but in the mental and emotional health of the patient as well. And then my second answer to that question would be another way to be an ally would to be to use, again, like I said before, to amplify your voice. So as an ally, use your platform, use your influence to educate others about sickle cell, to raise funds. There's so much that people can do who don't have sickle cell, or who don't even have people in their family that have sickle cell, to be an advocate. So we all can be junior advocates, so to speak. So I think everyone could play a part in at least lending their voice to eradicate the ignorance around this disease.
Excellent, thank you. Our next question is for Kayla. And the question reads, let's see, the question reads, how long did it take you to recover?
Hello, sorry.
That's okay. We can hear you.
Okay. What was the question?
Sure. The question is about recovery time and how long it often takes you to recover.
Well, it varies. It depends on you. Everybody's different during the transplant, so it depends on how your body react to it. And it's just how they react to the side effects and like the chemotherapy, the medication. It can literally be anything. So it's all up to your body.
Okay. And then Kayla, specifically for you as a successful recipient, how long did it take you to recover?
Okay. Okay. I went in December 26th, 2017. And I was released September 19th of 2018. So
Wow.
yeah. So it was pretty long.
Thank you. So we recognize that that recovery process does take time, but it sounds like you stayed positive and you pushed through.
Yes, ma'am. That's all you can do is to stay positive and yeah.
Thank you. The next question is for Dr. DeCastro. Dr. DeCastro, the question reads, how do you find a doctor who would be willing to prescribe certain medications? And it looks like the question is specifically referring to voxelotor. How do you find a doctor who would be willing to prescribe voxelotor?
So there's different ways. I usually recommend any individual living with sickle cell to try to connect with a pediatrician or an adult provider with expertise in sickle cell disease. It could be a primary care physician, it could be a hematologist, and it could be basically a sickle cell subspecialty expert. Sometime where you live that not be geographically available, but there's always the possibility now of communicate via email and for by telephone and talk with your provider, see if you can be, in fact, now we use even telemedicine to take care of patients that live far. And this has been brought more actively since the COVID-19 pandemic. So find out a provider where you can discuss your medical issues that is willing to follow you long time, and that provider most likely will have knowledge of the new, not only Oxbryta, but all the new sickle cell disease modifying medications, and then discuss with that provider what is is it an indicator for you, is you a candidate for that, and how to get it done. Again, that's more challenge with when you're geographically isolated or not close to a sickle cell center, but again, now we can use more different ways of communicating with your provider. And a lot of time, as long as you have a hematologist or sickle cell doctor that works with your primary care or your pediatrician on managing your disease, they can prescribe that and oversee your care even long distance from where you are.
Thank you. It looks like our final two questions are for Dr. Little, Dr. Chen, and I see one more from Dr. Strauss. Tell us, if you will, what are some final takeaways that people with sickle cell and those who are allies should think about, specifically as we continue to push through this COVID-19 pandemic?
That for me?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think anybody needs advice from me, honestly. And when you hear the people on this panel who talked about how they've coped with sickle cell disease, it sounds like, you know, optimism and community and grit are the things that have really made a difference. And I think what Dr. DeCastro mentioned about trying to find providers who can educate you and walk with you as you try to take care of your sickle cell disease is another very important part of it. So, I mean, it sounds like everybody knows and is doing already the things that I admire and would recommend.
Thank you, Dr. Little. Dr. Strauss? It looks like Dr. Strauss may be on mute. Dr. Chin, we'll wrap up with you.
So I would second Dr. Little in mentioning, and I'm so glad that I was part of this conference because I think it helps me, and my takeaway message and my recommendation to everyone is spread the word. Spread the word, not only among the sickle cell patients with sickle cell disease, but for patients who do not, because this is such an unheard disease. And I think people really need that education, everyone. And that will be what I hope that each and every one of us will just go out and spread the word.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chin. To everyone on today's International Sickle Cell Virtual Symposium, we want to again say thank you so much. We are extremely grateful for your time that you've given to us this evening. We're also grateful for your talents and your willingness to help folks push forward in the midst of this particular pandemic and for those who have sickle cell disease. For folks who did not get a chance to have their questions completely answered this evening, we ask that you feel free to please email them to Bridges Pointe or to Piedmont so that we can ensure that your questions are answered. I'll now turn it over to either Jessica, Shanika, or Justina to close us out. And again, thank you everyone